Okay, finally we get some gameplay. That was quite a bit of cutscene to go through before the actual heart of the game starts up. And for some reason, Roll took off the sweater, but she's going to put it back on as soon as we get outside. Yeah. You have no idea how long subtitling all of those scenes took. Alright, so our new objective is to find the parts necessary to build the dropship so we can land on the island with the giant storm hanging over it. This is completely reckless. Why are we doing this again? I know you want to help your grandfather, but landing on the island directly? Okay. You know, we'll just go with it. Mega Man just goes with anything Roll puts him through, to be honest. Alright, so now we're in a much more wide open area. You can see the full 360-degree movement in action. And believe me, moving around with the stick feels so good. So the junk shop is right up there to our left, but there's a lot to explore in this little town. The first island that you set foot on, it's really a huge sandbox of stuff you can do. Like, for example, we have this little duck. You can kick this little duck. I have no idea why you can kick this little duck or why you can get on it and start kicking it to use it as a slide. But it's pretty cool, and that's not the only thing you can kick in this area too. You can also kick the snowman, and then you can kick its little tin hat around, and it bounces around like a hockey puck. Yeah, I have no idea why they put that in. Oh, and I thought you could jump on the little tin can thing, but you can't, apparently. That would have been fun, though, to ride around on it. And you can also go inside all of the buildings. Like, on Catalog's Island, we couldn't actually go inside any of the residential homes and stuff. But in Legends 2, you can totally go inside any house. Any house with a door that's not locked anyways. And you can find NPCs and all sorts of stuff to examine. That house was actually the home of Mr. Von Blucher, the guy who was with Gramps on the Sulphur Bottom, so that's interesting. And Roll has a couple reactions to things you can do in this town. It's pretty nice. And of course we have our favorite Mega Man Legends pastime, kicking the can. Unfortunately, I was unable to actually get the can into that little trash bin. I guess the hitbox on it is weird, but like in Legends 1, if you kick the can into the garbage, you get 1,000 zenny. And if you look in the trash can itself, you can find a book for some reason. I have no idea why there was a book in the trash can. You'd think somebody would put that in the library or in the junk shop. But yeah, it's a development item. Just like in Legends 1, we have development items. And we're going to get another one in just a moment here. There's one inside of this house, for some reason. Now, a thing that Legends 2 does is that there are 6 books in the game, but you don't know what the books are actually about until you take them to Roll. So they just get referred to as Mechanic Notes 1 and 2, etc. Kind of weird how they do that. You didn't need to do that in Legends 1. And of course, we just go into this lady's house and steal her vacuum cleaner. But it was broken, she won't miss it. Oh yeah, and another thing about Legends 2 is, like, almost every NPC in the game has a unique model. I cannot think of an NPC who uses a recycled model except for one. And that's the only NPC in the game to use the twin sister excuse for why they look exactly the same. Anyways, there are actually 2 kind of stores, but there's nothing in the general store for us right now. So we're going to go into the Barity Parts Shop. Barity? Is that the owner's name or something? Well, into the junk shop we go, and hey! More cutscene. At least there's no voice acting, so I can actually talk over it. It's kind of hard to see in this camera angle, but he actually has a mechanical arm, the man with the purple hair there. They don't really talk about it too much, but in this universe, I think substituting your body parts for robot parts is actually a pretty common thing. I mean, Mega Man does it all the time with all of his gun arms and stuff. And we saw that Barrel actually has, like, a half metal head, even in Legends 1. And those green eyes. I've always wondered what was up with those. They never say. Alright, so now we can get down to business. Wow, so this guy has the exact same schematic than we do? Wow, what a coincidence. Oh, gee, she bolted out the door rather quickly. So I suppose we better follow her. Plot is certainly taking an interesting turn already. Oh yeah, and remember how Legends 1 let you say some really awful things to people? You have the option to say, right here, wait for it, who knows, he might be dead. But you actually have to pick option 1 to advance the plot. Oh, well, how convenient. He has an already built dropship. I guess we don't have to find any parts. We could just take this one. Assuming the guy lets us, anyways. He wants to go to Forbidden Island. People keep going to this island, even though people, like, disappear there, and a giant ship is about to crash into it. You know, you'd think people would learn at some point. Yeah, I certainly have many questions for this man. Anyhow, it looks like we're going to head off to the ruins, but I've forgotten to actually find some Zenny and purchase some equipment, because in Legends 2, no thanks to Roll selling all of my Buster parts and my fully maximized Shining Laser, we have to start from scratch. And luckily, you can actually go on the Flutter and explore a little bit, and there are some hidden caches of Zenny in the ship. Like right here, there's 1,000 Zenny in Mega Man's room. And now we're going to steal all of his grandfather's money. Isn't that nice of us? Flutter layout's a little different from Legends 1, but the 3 rooms here are in more or less the same position. So there's 5,000 Zenny under the bed, and there's 1,000 Zenny in the little model of the Flutter there. And there are also a bunch of lore books in that room, like there's a summary of the plot of Legends 1 and a bunch of other stuff like Mega Man's backstory. As far as Roll and her family knows, of course. Actually some pretty interesting stuff and a lot of foreshadowing for the actual plot of Legends 2. But we'll save that for later. Alright, so on the, let's see, this is the 3rd floor of the Flutter, I think? Or would it be the first floor? Whatever. This basket has a Buster part, the Rapid Fire. Somebody must have held on to it after Legends 1, I guess. Anyhow, there's one more cache of Zenny we can find down here. I'm not exactly sure what there's a little packet of Zenny doing in this little panel on the wall. Not this one. I haven't played this in so long, I actually forgot a little bit. But this room is actually where Roll put the red refractor in Legends 1, so that's a neat little throwback. Anyhow, there's 2,000 Zenny in there. I hope we didn't just swipe an important refractor for the Flutter or something. I wonder if the red refractor is actually still inside. Probably is. Of course, we never know how long these refractors actually last, but the big ones probably last for quite a while. It's only been a year since Legends 1, chronologically. Anyhow, we have some zenny, so we're going to go and purchase a couple buster parts. Well, actually, in addition to the buster parts, there's also one other errand I wanted to get done. Yeah, I'm going to go and do that first, actually. So this town is a little bigger than the areas that you're required to go in. If you head down this path, you will find something really strange. There's a graveyard here. Presumably a bunch of graves for people who are presumed dead after they went to Forbidden Island, because this island that we're on is actually pretty close to Forbidden Island. And for some reason there's a cathedral. Why they put a church in Mega Man Legends, I'll never know, but you can actually donate to the church if you so desire, but we're not here for that. We are here for... What's Data doing here? Is Data religious? Weird. Okay, for some reason, there is a, this girl here works for the Diggers Guild, which is a new concept they introduce in Mega Man Legends 2. So you start the game with a Class B Digger's license, and there are 2 tests you can take to upgrade it to an A license and an S license. The tests work like this. You basically have to just get through a series of rooms with a bunch of Reaver bots. And the equipment that you use for the test is provided by them, so no taking the shining laser in here. So since there's not much of interest about the first test, well, aside from the fact that Mega Man now looks like he hasn't showered in months, I'll explain what that is in a later video. It's not that relevant right now. So as you can see, Mega Man learned a new trick in Legends 2. He can now pick up enemies and throw them. It's a really neat concept, and I don't think they actually use it enough in Legends 2, but it can be used pretty effectively in the early parts of the game when you have no special weapons. Like, you can throw enemies into each other, and that will actually be an instant KO, compared to if you just shot them a bunch with a buster. But the stutter shot technique is still around as well, and I'll be using it a bunch in these tests, actually. The Class A test is not that difficult, so I'll talk a little more about the tests themselves. Upgrading your license unlocks a new optional dungeon for each upgrade that you get. So, the explanation for this is that the guild has locked the dungeons, the optional ones, so that you can't get in without a certain level of license. So completing the Class A license will allow us to unlock another dungeon. And actually, another thing that happens when you upgrade your license is that the Reaver bots throughout the rest of the game, and the other robot enemies too, they all get stronger. So not only does upgrading your license allow you to unlock another dungeon, it will also upgrade the game difficulty. There are 3 additional difficulty levels in Legends 2 besides normal mode. There's hard mode, there's easy mode, and there's very hard mode as well. If you play on hard mode, the game is basically exactly the same as normal mode, except you start with the Class S license. So really, you can go straight to hard mode if you are skilled enough to complete these tests, which I think is a very nice idea. It helps if you're starting a new game on a new memory card and you don't want to take as much time unlocking higher difficulties and then playing them over again. And that's important too, because very hard mode is unlocked by completing the game with the Class S license. Oh, and the boss of this test is actually one of the Reaver bots from the previous game that I hate so much. But he's not difficult to take down on normal mode, especially with the equipment they give you. They actually give you a helmet, which is nice. So that's the Class A test. It wasn't that difficult. But the Class S test is much, much harder. You have to really know how the lifter works, and you have to use the stutter shot quite a bit. I don't think the developers designed this with the intention that you would use the stutter shot, but it did actually take a couple of attempts to actually beat this, and I accidentally asked for the explanation. Silly me. Oh yeah, another detail I want to point out is that there are several NPCs who will now actually turn their heads to look at you as you walk around. That was always a neat detail to me, and I never really paid attention to it too much. Okay, so I'm going to talk more about the Class S license test itself. You really have to throw enemies at each other in order to instantly KO them, because if you just shoot at enemies, it's not impossible to get through this without the lifter. I've seen it done, but it's very difficult. You will be very pressed for time if you try it. So yeah, the shield Reaver bots can now be thrown into each other, which makes dealing with them a lot easier and quicker. But there's a risk to it too, because you actually have to collide with the enemy while holding the special weapon button in order to lift them. So that's a bit of risk because, you know, if you walk into them while they're doing an attack animation, you'll get hit. And what's more, the throwing distance is different for every enemy, so unless you really know their hitboxes, you know, you can end up just throwing enemies closer to each other instead of just, like, getting them to be thrown into each other and instantly destroying them. And this enemy right here is actually a Reaver bot spawner. You have to destroy the spawner first, or the Reaver bots never stop coming. It's stationary, so using the stutter shot is ideal there. And that was a fail. I was actually trying to shoot at the shield Reaver bot in order to lift him, like I did just there. And that enemy that just exploded, that's an enemy that will float towards you and self-destruct. And if it does self-destruct, then it does actually a lot of damage. And in this test, you've got a very small amount of health, and no way to recover it either, so you've got to be really careful with those guys. In fact, the self-destructing enemies still damage you if you're too close to them when you actually shoot them. So yeah, be very careful about that. And this room has 3 Reaver bot spawners, so the strategy I've kind of formed to deal with this is to just run around the room in a circle while shooting at each spawner and taking whatever shots I can. If the Reaver bots get too close to me, I just jump over it and start shooting at the next one. And just keep going like that in a circle until all of the spawners are destroyed. And by the time all of them are destroyed, like, all of the Reaver bots following me will have grouped up into, like, this big clump. So shooting them once will destroy all of them, as you'll see. The reason I don't shoot at the Reaver bots that actually spawned is because there's a limit to how many of them can actually be in a room at the same time. So it's better to just shoot all of the spawners before dealing with the Reaver bots themselves. And that actually did cause a little lag, having all of them explode at the same time that close to each other. Another thing I want to point out is that this map that we're in is actually used for the in-game tutorial. So that's kind of an interesting thing. They also use the tutorial for these license tests. And the music for him, the ambiance in this room, is the same as the dungeon ambiance in Legends 1. There are a couple of reused tracks from Legends 1, but not a whole lot of them. And of course, I'm throwing the shield Reaver bots at each other to destroy them. And here's the hard part. This will kill your run if you're not careful, because there are now 2 of the annoying jumper Reaver bots. So you've got to pay really close attention to where both of them are, and I have no idea what that one was doing. He was really jittering underneath me. I think you've got to use the dodge roll a lot more. You can definitely see that Legends 2 controls a lot better since you're able to move and fire at people while locked on. The lock-on is a lot better. And it was at this point that I figured that the dodge roll was better for movement, but I still got hit there. So maybe this is a test of how much health you have left. I was actually worried that I was going to die and have to redo the whole thing again. It did take a couple of attempts. Fortunately, yeah, you can also see that this shield mechanic from Legends 1 is now gone, but luckily I got through all of that without dying. So that's the Class S test completed. We are now officially playing Legends 2 on hard mode, and we can go through all of the unlockable dungeons. If you start the game on easy mode, you get the Class C license, which can enter any dungeon. However, all of the Zenny drops are doubled, which is actually pretty nice. And easy mode does give you that buster part that maxes out all of your stats as well. So easy mode's a little fun, but if you've unlocked it, then you probably don't really need it. Very hard mode, however, I don't really like in this game because it starts you off with the Class SS license, which halves all of the Zenny drops instead of doubling them. Zenny caches in like chests and stuff are still okay. They aren't affected at all, but having the Zenny drops halved, this game, like, you can see that some of the items here are actually really, really expensive. Legends 2 honestly has a much worse Zenny grind than Legends 1 does, but I suppose I can ramble about that in future videos. For now, we're going to actually go out to the ruins now. So in the next video, we'll tackle our first dungeon in Legends 2.